friends, colleagues, supervisors to get more value add and fix up the problem. Then start with what is called a very rigorous exercise called reviewing of literature. Reviewing of literature, of course, is extremely important, very important to dedicate a lot of time and also focus. And we also discussed about the technique of reviewing of literature in the sense that, choosing keywords, getting the hits in a search engine, not one search engine, but many search engines, scientific search engines of the keyword that we put and get the hits. And if we start with very general keywords, then fine tune it to an extent that, sizable, of course, achievable reading possibility is there. Like for example, 150 to 200 articles from the last 5 years, starting from current year backwards. Then we put a Excel table with 4 columns, first column being authors and reading the abstract and recording the title and authors, their affiliation in the first column. In the second column, we will consolidate the results that as it is presented in the abstract of the article. And of course, the methods that the person has followed to achieve the results, do the experiments, and of course, some summary of results in the third column and also conclusion in the fourth column. So once we have this 200 or 150 rows, a big consolidated table, it is easy and handy for us to, identify the gaps and make our own research problem according to the, criteria that I have told you, make the problem statement. And now it is time for us to continue our research, our reviewing of literature to frame up what is called objectives. It is extremely important. The objectives are to be delineated. Objectives are almost working plan, like hitherto we had only plan. And now an executive plan starts, what can be executed. So after making the hypothesis, of course, hypothesis also we have discussed in the last session. Hypothesis is nothing but reflecting off the problem 50% and also the guessed logical solution for it. And once we have the hypothesis in place, then we can start with what is called objectives. Objectives have they have got to be concise. And there is some rules and regulations for objectives, which we are going to start off right now. Then we talk about materials and methods, some things which generally people forget to, consider. Let us just recapitulate. What are those important points? How to build up this particular materials and methods chapter, as well as how to conduct that in during we do the experiments. Then once we do the experiment, obviously we get findings and results. Results will come, how to, organize those results, record those results, document it, and get a meaning out of it, kind of interpretation after doing the 3 kinds of statistics, that is descriptive, correlational, and inferential statistics. Once we put for the results, we get some findings, and that findings have got to be interpreted. Interpretation is, first is self-interpretation of the results. That is, whatever that you have got the results, you will explain in detail how you got it, why you got it, what is the significance of it. And of course, in the light of other findings of the similar experiments, you will do a detailed discussion, which is extremely important, that we discuss at length today. And finally, how to draw conclusions and summarize whatever that we have done. And of course, document the acknowledgements. Let us cover these topics today. If time permits, we'll go a little further. But I think, being an hour from now, we can cover all these topics conveniently. I see Dr. Sunil has come. Dr. Sunil?
Sir, good morning.
Hello. Good morning, Dr. Sunil.
Yeah,
Shall I continue with your permission?
Please,
Thank
please,
you.
please, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Yes, sir. Please.
Yeah. So objectives are important because there are, we will see why objectives are important little later. But let us see what is the ingredients in objectives, what are those mandatory things that we should incorporate, and what these objectives achieve. Objectives are to be very specific in nature. They should not be general. Generalizations is a thing that you know, do it once you get the findings, you know. But the topic has got to be focused, tapered, and very, very to the point specific. Now let us just imagine a topic like, for example, blood lead, right? For example, blood lead. Now, what is blood lead? Blood lead is a toxicant, all of you know. It's a xenobiotic and a very, very recalcitrant, very, very hard, very difficult to eliminate, because there is no enzyme inside the human body that will digest or that will, you know, detoxify this particular lead. Lead is cumulative poison, like a typical trace toxic heavy metal. Heavy trace is very little quantity available in micro nanograms. Even that is, you know, cumulative in nature, goes and enters the body by inhalation, ingestion, skin absorption, and of course, finally, it, you know, the store organ for the lead inside the body is the bone, replaces the essential calcium, and lead sits in place of calcium. And once your immunity level goes down, maybe after 20 to 25 years of age, the lead that is dormant all these years and completely being chronically cumulative, now it becomes a dominant monstrous thing and expresses a disease called plumbism. And such pollutants, which, you know, give very late realizations, very late precipitation into very incurable diseases, are very dangerous. Added to that, lead also is a multi organ disease it will give, in the sense it is a hematopoietic toxin, that is, it comes in the way of formation of red blood corpuscles, so anemia. It is a digestive, it gives lot of problem for colorectal region, and so it is a digestive poison. Lead colic is very, very famous and very intense, unbearable stomach pain. And of course, lead is more than everything is cardiotoxic, and more than everything, it you know, replaces the bone. I mean, calcium in the bone, so bone subtlety. And finally, the most dangerous and dreadly thing is that it is a neurotoxicant. You have what is called Pica disease among children. Pica disease is nothing but eating this soil, eating this you know, white paint or the lime, and you have a lot of lead contamination in these materials. And you know, the childhood lead poisoning is a global phenomena, and lead is omnipresent everywhere it is present, and very, very difficult to remove. So we have to choose such elements which are difficult to, you know, tackle, and then do kind of what is called research, find out some solutions to solve the problem of these heavy metals. So you will have to be very, very specific in choosing the word to put, because lot of work would have been done on such famous xenobiotics. So if you want to choose a topic, you should find out if it is a topic on, say, blood lead, which is a bioindicator for knowing the level inside the body. Blood lead means you will get somewhere around 4 to 5 lakh of research papers. Extremely tough for you to, you know, choose. So you will have to fine tune this particular keyword. You can put blood lead among tropics, among in India, in Bangalore, among adolescents, in female children, at Bangalore. If you do this kind of tapering, it is possible that you get less and less and less number of articles. And finally, when you come to adolescents in Bangalore, it could be maybe 50 to 60 or even 100 articles you may find, which is manageable for anybody to read in detail. So you take that as the reference point to read the abstracts and make the chart. You know, that is how the review of literature has got to be done. And the publications has got to be current in nature, in the sense last 3 or 5 years. And that is the criteria for you to select the articles and spend time in reading abstracts. Not necessary in the beginning to read complete articles. and prepare a consolidated table which will be useful not only to develop your review of literature chapter but also very highly useful in building two more chapters like discussion and also bibliography of your thesis. So that is the point that we need to remember in reviewing of literature. And when we do this, we are now about to start off with a juxtaposed objective chapter, and the objectives has got to be specific. This is the narration for specificity. Now, the next important criteria for objective to be delineated is that it should be measurable. Measurable in the sense that it should find, grip with experimentation, and also it should be easily quantifiable in terms of digits and numbers. That is extremely important. Measuring is a very important criteria in research because this measure, what you measure, should be measured by somebody else also to endorse, appreciate, accept your findings. So measurability of the objective becomes extremely important. And it is attainable and achievable is very, very important. This is where many research scholars fail to do. Achievable is attainability. Attainability is like, for example, in common parlance, putting only such thing that you can chew well and gulp, not putting many things. Many students in the beginning are very ambitious in nature. The specificity will not be there, measurability will not be there, achievability will be too ambitious. Too ambitious thing is extremely tough for you to completely satisfy and end up in some kind of useful finding. So achievability is extremely important. I should also use the word here what is called feasibility. Feasibility in my judgment means first possibility that you can do with your limited knowledge and with the domain knowledge of your supervisor and co-supervisors. And also it should be economically viable, and it should have the third criteria that it should be a creation or a new thing, novelty, which is useful to the society. These are the ingredients of what is called achievability. So achievability, you should use lot of prudence, lot of wisdom, and then it should be realistic in nature. Idealism has no place in putting up of objectives. Idealism is dreamish, but realism is what you can achieve. That realistic thing also should be a quality. Once if somebody else read, yes, this is possible within this time frame, time bound, the last one, which in this time frame, these many objectives can be achieved. In convention, generally objectives are numbered in serial numbers or bulleted, and it will not be infinite bullets or infinite number. The objectives are very, very specific and kind of what is called achievability. So the number gets restricted. It is by convention 3 objectives for a PhD student, because each objective to be experimented and then results to be consolidated. 3 years, 3 objectives, and these objectives have got to be as a reference thing to you for whether you are in the right direction, whether you are doing correctly, whether sometimes objectives themselves will be forgotten because the side business, the things that you get in the process of experimentation are more interesting. So there is a vulnerability of you getting drawn into some other side tracks. You have got to be very, very careful. You should never leave your objective. So being on path extremely becomes crucial. So why we should have objectives? These are the reasons why we should have objectives. It has to, because solution has got to be obtained for the problem that you have selected. So gaining solution is without objectives is impossible. Gaining right solution also becomes extremely important. Right solution is many times we get wrong solutions, many times we do wrong things, and those things we should recognize that it is wrong and tell that it is wrong so you can choose the right one. So right solution, right direction, exactly, this is important. Direction as, see, your ship should not be directionless. You have to move in what direction that you put, what your direction you plan. So delineation or side tractions becomes extremely a case of vulnerability. Never succumb to that kind of side attractions. So focused on the objective that you have framed becomes important. And lastly, more importantly, is you should get findings. You should be able to replicate yourself. many times, not one time, many times, repeatedly, so that what you have got becomes assured, you become completely confident, and also by doing many times, you become competent. So gaining confidence, competence, and also being bold to tell anybody else can do, given this criteria, they will also get the same solution. So replicability is a very important criteria for any researcher. Anybody else, if they follow your method, they should be able to get whatever the result that you have got. In fact, that is how the vetting, that is how you get your greatness, you get your sincerity, you get your popularity, and you become famous. Extremely important. So objectives is this kind of points have got to be remembered. If you want to remember, it is SMART in the beginning, SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And regarding objectives, right solution, right gaining the solution, getting the solution, right direction, and also having a focus on replicable findings. Now we move on to what is called, we have now framed the objectives also. The objectives are clear. So we pick up objective by objective. Sometimes we can do all the two objectives simultaneously also by planning experiments. But it is good that you do objective by object so that you do an incremental gain of knowledge as well as experience. So materials and methods is a very, very, very important chapter. Many people, students, as I see in my survey, give very less, importance to this particular section, this particular documentation. We don't document that, we utterly fail. And that is how we become, our research becomes, in quality, mediocrity. So mediocrity has no place in research. So it is important that we should consider that this materials and method chapter is important. And what we should follow in delineating materials and methods is the point of discussion, and we see how we do that. As you see this picture is nothing but summary of material methods. You have a reagent solution that is made. You have so many chemicals, biologicals stored in refrigerator. They're all materials, they are stored. So many equipments we use for experiments, using materials, putting materials inside them. We analyze what are called analytes, and we get lot of data. We have very sundry things like test tube stands, other reagent bottles in the laboratory. It could be any other scenario too. If it is a biology or botany lab, it could be so many related to that. You will get materials. So if it is electronics, you get related to the electronics, you get the materials. I have just given an example just to illustrate materials become extremely important, not only for conducting the experiments per se, but also for understanding ourselves, each material, their significance, their role in our experiments, extremely important. And documenting them during the working is also extremely important. Now, what does this material method chapter give us? It allows the reader, that is material methods, once you write, that allows the reader to envision, to visualize what you have done, what was done, to repeat the procedures if needed. See, if the experiment that you are doing is taken by somebody else should have given all the details of that experiment, is it not? Otherwise, how will you do? How will you assemblage the equipment and do the experiment? So if you also ignore that particular subtleties, fine tuning things, you people who read your article will be at a loss. They will be confused. They will not understand. Especially editors are very, very, very knowledgeable. They will have a very keen eye on this particular materials and methods chapter. More details in material methods that you provide, better is the result, and correct and appropriateness would be added to your particular work. And also, as a personality, people feel that you are a detailed person. You are a person who can narrate even fine things and even subtle things. This is extremely important for a researcher. Then the difference between the trivial and critical results may depend on the goals of the study. In research, there is nothing like triviality. many times trivial type findings, many times we find it is just a passing finding or an observation we see, but we tend to ignore that. There is nothing like that. Everything has got to be documented. They have their own role, they have their significance in overall picture. So no second priority or third priority things that is to be considered in experimentation or even in choosing and trying and working with materials. So critical details may depend on the goals of the study. What is trivial for one study may be essential for the other. That is extremely important. And an oligo fact, obvious fact, date, time, place, type of net, boat. For example, if it is you're using a net for collection of fish, if you're using a net for so many other things as in the sampling, what type of boat that you used, becomes extremely important. They may be very trivial things, but recording it and using that and also narrating it becomes crucial and important. Subsections are useful for the organization. What you do in the field sampling, what is the procedure that you follow. For example, if I say field sampling, let us say I am a person who want to collect samples from Rishabhavati river. I should always tell Rishabhavati Valley is a tributary of some kind of river. It is the distance between my laboratory and the field. This one is so much. These things we forget, We don't give that idea for a reader. We say Rishabhavati Valley sampled. That is not the expected thing of a researcher. Details are extremely important, whether you like it or others like it. It is mandatory for you to narrate, starting from giving as much information as possible in the materials and methods chapter. Now coming to chemical substances, this is just an example. This chemical can be replaced with any animal or human subject or a microorganism or a plant or anything that whatever that sample you have. You see, you have two words here. You have to use it very carefully. Material is generally a sample. Now sample can be verb, can be noun. Please understand. You can sample water, but put the ulta, water sampling. So sample, water sample. Sample water. Sample water means sampling of water. That is a doing thing. So it is a verb. Now put the reverse, water sample. That is once you get the sample, bring to your laboratory, then it becomes a water sample. We should use these words very, very carefully. Sample and sampling is nothing but material and method. Sample is material, sampling is method. So you need to explain both the things separately and in detail. You have to understand. So material methods take lot of time and lot of details have got to be recorded. Always carry. I think you are also making notes now. As I told you, noting down becomes extremely important because some points are missed when you recapitulate, and it is good that you have your own hand notes. So chemical substance is something which is extremely important. Now, how the story starts with a chemical substance, you will have to give what grade that you have used, technical specification. Noted, one of the most important technical specification is what is called CAS number, chemical abstract service number. This is what this is the namakaran of that particular chemical, because the single chemical can exist in many forms. For example, sodium hydroxide exists in tablet form, flakes form, solution form, and also in crystalline form, in kind of total agglomerated solid form. We don't know what form that you have used. So you will have to tell what form you have used, that physico-chemical characteristics, and also the chemical abstract number. If for sodium hydroxide, there is a chemical abstract number, mention that number that you have used. That gives lot of credibility to you. Many people forget to use this one. That is how they become non-technical. So technical specifications are extremely important. Quality, quantity. Quality means you have GR grade, ER grade, analytical grade, commercial grade, technical. So many grades you will get. And what grade that you have used for me to replicate your experiment, you need to lead me. You need to guide me. So it becomes important. Quality, quantity, milligrams, gram, kg, how did you use, how did you measure, which equipment used for weighing, what is that the digits after the decimal place that weighing machine had. They are all trivial, but they are very crucial. No, you will have to mention it, and it is good that you be as elaborate as possible. And when you prepare the solution, what kind of water solvent that you have used, and its grade, its CIS number becomes important. If you use water, which water? Deionized water, distilled water, tap water, river water, what water you used, that also becomes important. So generic names, chemical names, trade names, technical names, and alternatives, all those things, if you use a chemical. See, this is just for a chemical. Like that, you can have so many details for n number of materials that you use. For soil, which soil you used, was it physically loamy, sandy loamy, clayish, lateritic, what kind of soil that you have sampled, that is the information related to the sample becomes crucial for anybody to replicate, anybody to understand. And also many findings also depend on these forms, so don't never ignore these details in writing or specifying the materials. Now, reagent preparation method that you have used, like a SOP, like a standard operating procedure, you need to tell what is the primary standard, which secondary standard. And did you use what is called SRM? SRM means standard reference material. Standard reference materials are those materials for which the constituent concentration is known. You see, NBS, National Bureau of Standards, United States of America, especially for organic and fine chemicals, they give you SRMs, standard reference materials. So did you use standard reference material? If so, where did you purchase? How did you procure? Those things become extremely important. Method of preparation becomes important. If it is proprietary, country name, manufacturer details also becomes important. Why I am stressing this is, these are the things majority of researchers ignore. They don't write just because they would not have gathered the information while they are doing the experiment. So I would request all of you to have an extra special effort to note down these numbers so that you can use this and put it in your thesis. And that is a value add. And it is not for anybody's sake, it is for your own sake, and also for the sake of people, n number of people who read after you, it becomes extremely important. And many people make opinions. If you give these such details, they will make a good opinion on you, and they will have an appreciation that you're a meticulous researcher. So to achieve all those things, it is important for us to, mention these subtle things in your research work. Include trademark symbol if it is possible. And please take down this. This is what is very extremely important with reference to any material that is manufactured, what is called MSDS data sheet. Now, what is this MSDS data sheet? It's called material safety data sheet. This material safety data sheets are very structurally, very professionally stitched. It will have, there are two big agencies which have developed this material safety data sheets. One is called ANSI, the other one is OSHA. Of course, you will read through it. Please put a keyword today, learn about this material safety data sheet, because if you want NaOH, put NaOH MSDS, you will get the material safety data sheet in the Google. And also there are separate search engines where the toxicological information is available for that particular chemical that you are using. And that is exhaustive. Each material will have maybe 7 to 8 very small fonted information, exhaustive information, including chemical service abstract number you will get. So please note down this MSDS. If you have, it will be very good for you, and it will give you a lot of what is called technical literature. It starts with the phone number and details of the manufacturer, the quantity of the particular chemical that is manufactured, the process that is manufactured, the toxicological details that the chemical has. If it is, say, for example, sulfur that you're using, if it is, for example, sodium that you're using, if it is sodium hydroxide that you're using, you will get all the information. in this material safety data sheet, and it is mandatory. So if you are doing chemistry, or anybody for that matter, even an electronics engineer using a chemical, should refer to this material safety data sheets. There are 15 sub chapters for each chemicals, and you will really get astonished once you read through this material safety data sheet, the information that you get it. So use that information available, specify that material data sheet information. Also, hello? Yeah. Now, if it is in an experimental animal, plants, and microorganisms, as much details as possible, similar to what chemicals that I have narrated, genus, species, strains, possibilities. Then human beings, whether did you get an informed consent to include that particular person as a sample, or as a numbered person for investigation, gender, ethnicity, race, age, city, country, all this becomes extremely, extremely important. So methods, it is the plan to tackle your research problem. Describe the activities necessary for completion of the project. The guiding principle in methods is, after materials, it is the method. Method is experiments. Guiding principle is it should contain such information in depth, whether the methodology is completely having full details. There is no scope for any doubt that is possible. In methods also, you can, when you represent the methods, this could be in the form of maps, diagrams, flow charts, figures, date tables. These are other allied things. In fact, each one I can explain in sessions how many tables are there, why this particular fashion table should be used. That is because of paucity of time. I skip all those things because that is also very important for a researcher. What type of table we should put. If the data is put on table, should we use it in graph? Should we convert that into a histogram? All those details I will ignore because I take for granted that you people know it, but never undermine anything. It is important. So these diagrams, these maps, consolidate the findings. Otherwise, you need to write pages and pages text narration. So to give is a kind of breaking of monotony and also technically sound, you represent in the form of pictures, flow diagrams, charts, sometimes photographs also. And continuing for the methods, you will have to design the method. Design of experiments itself is a big chapter. Generally, I describe it for about 10 to 12 hours. We have different designs of methods: case control design, correlational design, cross-sectional design, cohort design. So many designs of experiments are possible that you need to explain. And whether the questionnaire, if you use it, study, a survey type of a study, or a laboratory experiment, if it is a survey, how did you frame the questions? How did you use these words? What are the background information that made you to frame the question? Did you standardize the questionnaire? Those things also are relevant questions you need to keep in your mind. Then subject or participants who take part in your study, what are their bona fides, how they are sourced, have you taken the informed consent becomes important. Regarding sampling, that is another big chapter. Sampling is method, as I told you. Sample is material, I have already told you about it. So it is important how what procedure that you have used. Is it simple random? Is it stratified random? Is it cluster sample? That kind of the statistical method of sampling that you used, whether it's statistical sample, number of fixation of number of sample, did you use statistics, becomes important. So that itself is a big chapter. But anyway, it is good that you should keep in your mind these details when you describe the method. Instruments becomes extremely important. Even if it is a small instrument like thermometer that you use, you need to mention which thermometer you have used, what is the scale, what is the minimum, maximum, is it centigrade, Fahrenheit, what is the mid term, 1 degree divided in how many divisions, was it mercury, was it alcohol, was it glass, Was it, kind of these small things? Hello? Hello? So these instruments, are you able to listen to me? Are you listening me? Hello, somebody respond.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir,
Yeah, we
you're
can
clear,
listen.
sir.
Yeah, we can listen.
Okay,
We are
okay,
listening.
okay. So instruments, sometimes you use the assembled instruments. If you use assembled instruments, where did you choose? Who was the manufacturer? What it can do? What is the sensitivity, specificity? And also the kind of make that you, is it Shimadzu, is it Blue Star, is it, that make of the company becomes important. And whether those instruments are reliable, valid, also becomes important. In fact, when we were doing, I remember very clearly, when we were doing experiments, even the pipette was being calibrated. Pipette we definitely purchased from commercial source, Corning glass, but then we calibrate it. How do you calibrate a pipette? We take the distilled solution, distilled water solution at we maintain 25 degrees centigrade, flow through the marks that is in the present in the pipette, and measure the possibility. Sometimes repeatedly we measure, and if we find little departure, very departure at third, fourth decimal place, that also we cognize and record it. And that is how we calibrate equipments, calibration of equipments, instruments, and measuring, especially measuring instruments and glassware becomes important, because you need to do that. So never use whatever that you get, at one time one make pipette, at the other time some other pipette, this becomes an haphazard and unscientific way of doing things. You have your set of equipments, and use it very carefully, wash it very thoroughly, and use those instruments. So instrument narration, instrument specificity, instrument identification, instrument working nature. If there is not working, something not working, some correction has to be done, you can always mention that. So be honest and be sincere in using the equipments, instruments. If you have not used an instrument, you have given sample for somebody else, try to go get the information about the instrument that others have used, and learn about that instrument yourself. You can always learn. Learning becomes extremely important, because since you have not done the analysis, somebody else have done the analysis, you will not have first-hand information about it, but you have to get the first-hand information as much as possible from the worker, and request them if they can allow, when they are doing the analysis, you be present, possible. All those things are, see, engagement, involvement have got to be very thick and thick, because experience is what is experiment. And you do experiment, somebody else do the experiment, you put take the value. Sometimes it is okay, but many times it is not okay in research career and research path. Now regarding procedure, very detailed procedure you need to write. How do you plan the study? How do you carry out the study? Both. Any activity in research, first planning, that is your notes, and then execution, which you report. So what you report is execution, but what you have is both the notes of execution as well as plan. So planning and doing is always better, instead of doing random things unplannedly, because the expectation or the results that you get may not be that much reliable, that much correct when you do some random experiment. So planning becomes important, and how you got the results according to the plan. Okay, if it is not according to the plan, why the results deviated? All those things are possible only when you do planning. So procedure, you first plan and then write, and as much detail as possible, so that others can easily replicate, duplicate, and get convinced of what your results have were the same as their results. That is important. Measuring and analysis, precision, sensitivity, error, all those things come up here. What is that actual temperature at which the reaction was conducted, the temperature becomes crucial and critical. Is it according to the procedure, or is it did it deviate? All those things become important. Notes, making notes becomes important. Statistical analysis has got to be brief, because you will do three kinds of statistics for any finding that you get little later on to infer. First, you describe. Describe is mean, mode, median, working out. Then you have correlational, chi-square tests, tests of significance, and then finally inferential statistics. Student t-test and other things are become inferential statistics. You have to got to be clear. If a person asks what was the descriptive statistics and highlight, you should tell only about mean, mode, median. What is inferential? You should tell about the significance at which level. Those you have got to be very, very prudent and very, very to the point. So if you have done it only, will you be possible to answer? So it becomes important. Learn from the statistician. There are many good self-learning packages now available, very powerful. You have SPSS, you have Statistica, you have what is called R software now. You can just get acclimatized. It is not that difficult to get acclimatization of these statistical things. Sometimes statistics is needed for sampling also. Why sometimes? Always it is needed. So you should know how you sampled, what was the statistical basis you sampled. All those things become extremely handy and easy for you if you want to explain. Now, the extremely important thing is in materials and methods, you need to cite references. Many people don't do it. I do not know why. This is extremely important, because never ever all the researchers invent their own methods, is it not? So they would have taken some methods from outside. If it is a sock slit experiment, if it is an extraction experiment of a phyto origin, from leaf, from root, from stem, or from bud, from flower, you want to extract, the method already has been delineated. So go to a standard procedure which has been already explained, and please give the reference of that particular method that you are following. That gives you authenticity, that gives you what is called, people feel that you are a sincere man, you are a sincere woman. It is extremely important for you to prove your credibility, integrity, whenever you engage in research. So references have got to be cited in material method chapter as well, especially not when the set or when the delineated experiments you are repeating done by somebody else. References become very, very, very mandatory. I see many people ignoring this particular aspect. Tables and figures, extremely important. Flow charts, diagrams, they add value and also break monotony of the complete narration. So people feel very happy to read table, have a figure as a change. Visuals are always more attractive and more impressive on the mind. So use and exploit that kind of what is called feeling, or emotion, or relate to the emotion of the reader. So tables and figures also become crucially important. And it should not be too many. For everything, you need not have table. There is guiding principles, but that is out of the scope for me to explain. But tables and figures add on what is called, and visuals, like sometimes landscape, sometimes portrait, sometimes photograph, sometimes micro photograph, sometimes tomographs, sometimes computed outputs become extremely, they add on value because they will be picturesque in nature, scenic in nature. So it is always good that you stuff those things also into a stitch, when you stitch your results into thesis. So method, summarized: design, subjects, instruments, procedure. Got to be complete details, narration of everything is very, very important in this method chapter when you explain. This we have talked about this, I think it has come again. So that is the narration of what is called materials and methods. I hope some points you got which are new. I wish you all follow that the rule of detailing the materials and methods, documenting not only what you reflect in the thesis, but also hand notes. your experience. They will be highly useful. You will find lot of solace and lot of gratification when you have these things in your possession. Now, experiments are done, results are in hand, results are processed, results have been converted into figures, tables, and pictures. The inferential statistics are complete. Preliminary results you have obtained, statistical depth and breadth you have got. All those things here, almost everything, almost from, say, for example, the field study and the experimental phase is concluded in your the journey of research. Now is a very important chapter, what is called discussion. Now, what is the meaning of discussion? Please have a look at this picture. This picture, gives you a lot of meaning. If you observe, you can see people are standing and are engaging with some kind of what is called talking. Somebody is talking, somebody listening. Somebody are talking, somebody are observing, somebody are gesticulating, others are seeing. This is what is the complete analogy, complete story is what is going on with the mind, with the hands, with the brains and the subject matter and the expressions, gesticulations happening on the body is completely converted into sentences and paragraphs in the discussion chapter. Extremely, extremely important. This discussion is nothing but talking or having dialogue, not just dialogue. Many times, many people involved in talking. You as a researcher, others as observers, what you talk is your experience, extremely important. You have to tell what the finding you got. That is the first stage in result appraisal. You have to appraise the result. According to you, what is that? What did you get? So it is you, not with respect to others. That becomes later on. So according to you, what you interpret the result, that is one. The second, when according to others who have done such work, which is available in review of literature, how your results were behaved. It is three possibilities are there now. Now, what are those three possibilities? One is the results others have explained, others have obtained already. Your result can match. So then you will agree. So agreeing becomes a inference. You will dispute the results. You will tell why you have disputed the result. So that is the second scenario. The third one, you have got something which others did not get, and it is only unique because you did the experiment in a little different manner, because you deviated some kind of aspect, and that result for the first time you got. That is the third point. So all the three put together, all the three are extremely important. They run horizontally. There is nothing that this is big, that is small. It is not listing, it is running horizontally. All the three scenarios you need to explain in depth. And in all the three scenarios, when you are subjecting your results in the shadow of somebody else's findings, then citations become mandatory. Citations of now here you will take back that particular what is called Excel sheet that you have prepared when you do reviewing of literature. That becomes very handy here, because you would have got the results. They would have got the results in the line that or in the area that you are doing the research. So you can always compare. Sometimes you can also predict or depict comparative tables. It is according to European study, the result is this. According to, for example, American study, the result is this. According to Swiss study, it is this. According to German study, it is this. According to my study, this is the thing. So it becomes a comparative table, that also kind of becomes a novelty in presentation. And it is very good and gives adding value to your discussion, because you are really not just talking, but also giving facts and figures in a comparative account, others finding, and you are citing them. So discussion becomes extremely important. In discussion, how we proceed, what are those points that we need to remember? Let us just recapitulate. Now, before discussion, a small one slide on results, results, interpretation, reference literature, not just it has got to be completely only the facts. There is no fiction here, there is no imagination here, there is nothing guessing or foretelling in this particular, because it is coming out of your experiments. So facts are presented in tables, figures, interview summaries, and it is important what you found noteworthy, what you found significant, what you found has a bearing on the objective and the hypothesis that you have framed becomes important. The objective is to present simple clarity and also completeness. Many times the researchers, what they do, a flaw, or I should say, I cannot call it as fraud. Fraud becomes too harsh a word. A flaw is that if say they get negative results, they ignore or they completely, do not present it. This is a very wrong way in research. Whatever the results that you have got according to expectations, fair enough. If you get, if you don't get according to your expectations, they could be gold mines. Please remember, my dear friends, if something which is deviating, which something which is unexpected, which is something which is out of the box, out of the turn, you got it, you please take it that as the gold. Because at this point in time you do not know why you got it, but you have definitely observed it. Give a reason for it. Is it error in the reading? Is it error in the instrument? You rule out all those things, and if you get repeatedly same thing, that means that particular finding has some significance. It may not be your immediate objective, but hold that on for some time, and you can crack that particular, solve that solution little later on, maybe after your PhD work. But at the same time, please depict some unanswerable things, unexpected surprise things that you have got it, and tell so. If this is unexpected, it is got it, we need to explore. That is an honest way of disposition and sincere way of submission. It is extremely important. You never ever throw any data, whether it is the most trivial thing or most gross thing. It is better you present. You see, because of this large amount of trend of people ignoring negative results, people have started now journals for negative results. The journals dedicated to capture only the negative results, because negative results are more challenging, because they have been observed, because they have been obtained. There must be some reason for it. Immediately, we may not get the answer, but definitely we will be able to answer it. So never ever, ignore the negative results you got. Never ever make up your basic, descriptive statistics by leaving out the, because otherwise the average becomes little weak, average becomes little less, state of significance becomes less. No, these are all not integral. In fact, I will be talking about that little later on, what is called misconduct in research. They are all serious offenses. You should never ever ignore minor findings, especially findings which are little deviant, findings which are little unexpected. So in results, that is the most important thing I wanted to share with you. Now we go to step-by-step discussion of the discussion section, which is the heart of the paper or your research work per se. Purpose of discussion, as I told you, interpretations, opinions, your opinion, others' opinion, everybody's opinion consolidated, everything narrated, explain the implications of your findings, make suggestions for the future research. That is the last chapter in a discussion. So discussion, if you want to divide, it is 1/3 yours, 1/3 with respect to others, 1/3 what has been found and what can be done in future. This is how discussion chapter should be, partitioned. Function: to answer questions posed in your introduction, hypothesis, explain how the results support your answers. In fact, testing of hypothesis is another exercise that you will have to do in material methods, and that results you will present as discussion. How the answers fit in the existing knowledge, with the existing knowledge, relevance, contextual relevance becomes important. Discussion, not mere details about the results. Interpret there is not just depiction of result. I got the average this much. I got the standard deviation this much. I got the standard at this much. That is okay. That is depiction of result. But interpretation of why you got that why portion of it is extremely important. That why portion is what is called the discussion. You need to tell. You need to attribute some reason. You need to find some reason. For obtaining what the result that you got. And of course, I have told you about unexpected results, reference to previous research, and explanation. Exemplification means giving examples, giving analogies, giving similarities, giving just to substantiate your finding. You have to be exemplify. Exemplification means stud your discussion chapter with many examples, illustrations, which will support your argument, your finding, that is exemplification. Mind you, there is no depth for length of the discussion chapter. In fact, many people find it extremely difficult to write discussion because there is nothing to write. Everything has been depicted in results. But according to me, discussion, if it is more, discussion pages, if it is more, that means he is a better researcher. That means he is bothered to interpret his contribution, expose his knowledge, contribute his analogies and rationale. So this is where the creativity comes into the picture. This is where you can exhibit what is called novelty. So discussion should be as lengthy as possible, not as small as possible. Typically, in student research, we see, review of literature about 30 pages and material methods about 5 pages and discussion about 2 to 3 pages. And, that is not the correct distribution. Actually, discussion should be the most fatty thing. In fact, much more than reviewing of results and much more than even materials and methods, because this is where actually your originality is reflected and there is a chance for you to explain each and every observation, each and every finding that you have got it. And finally, the process that we follow is deduction. Deduction is nothing but from the specific to the general. It is reverse here. You see, hitherto we went from general to specific up to doing experiment. But now from specific to general we will start. That means the hourglass meter post the bottom of it. See, from your finding you will try to extrapolate. From your finding you will deduce. You will relate the hypothesis and also give a generalization, possibly a theory. That is how the discussion chapter should end. It is generalization and also depicting last but important facet, and that is future scope and recommendations. It should be like a running commentary, like how we enjoy cricket, ball to ball commentary, everything, so interestingly put, so easily understood and so clear, and there must be what is called in English flow. There must be a uninterrupted flow of your thoughts in the discussion, and that is possible by doing repeatedly writing discussion chapter, organizing it, and taking lot of time and spending more time in developing the discussion chapter. And once you discuss well, I tell you, you become excellent researchers. So you can begin by summarizing in the beginning chapter of discussion, summarizing the previous chapters, that is up to materials and methods, and answers, because you cracked the answer by obtaining findings, you can present them, interpret them, which is novelty, as I told you, subjectively as well as objectively with somebody else's and with yours, and generalizations, and finally conclude. This section, what does it give? Gives the meaning for your findings. In some cases, when your results are in direction as you predict, this meaning was anticipated. Sometimes, need not always, but many times it is anticipated. In cases where the results are not all in the desired direction, researcher has to explain why this was not the case. For example, sampling Is there a sampling flaw? Is there a measurement flaw? Is there a procedural flaw? All those things. Did I ignore any confounding variable? Now, a small bit about confounding variable. Confounding variable is a confusing variable. A variable, as I told you, is that thing which changes. Suppose if you're investigating lung function in among TB patients, tuberculosis patients, the expectation is lung function will be not near the normal, is it not? So because of the disease, uh, lung tuberculosis, So lung function being smaller, owing to tuberculosis, to an extent of 50%, you can delineate as a hypothesis. You test it and you get, say, around 60% or even 40%. Nevertheless, something you got in line, in tune with the expected finding. But what you have ignored is whether the particular person is a smoker, because smoking also can reduce the lung function. Smoker need not have tuberculosis. So smoking becomes a confounding variable. These variables, definitely you have to be very, very cautious. In fact, it is these things, like, in a reaction, they are catalytic poisons, they will, catalysis means increase the reaction or alter the reaction. But this particular presence, confounding thing, spoils the action of the catalyst itself. So these confounding variables or confusing variables are to be kept in mind very, very carefully. Many times they will be the culprits, they will be the reasons for finding whatever deviation, or for finding unexpected, finding things. You should rule out that too. Even then you get in a departure, then it is worth investigating and spending a lot of time. So confounding variables, please keep in your mind. They've got to be reasoned, they've got to be given due importance as the variable that is dependent and independent variable. So it gets the equal status. Confounding variable, many people ignore and end up in completely not presenting the data itself. Many times I have seen people will not be able to, present the data because they did not get what they wanted, that kind of situation they end up. So please keep and be careful about these confounding variables. I have put 10 steps, just I will read through. All those things we have discussed already, specific to general. Just I will run through. Second one is restate the hypothesis, just to give a cue. Explain how the results relate to expectations. We have talked about it. Address every result, not ignoring anything, no triviality, no ignoring negligence here. State the answer, support with relevant results, and cite others work relating to that particular finding. Defend your answer by explaining both why the answer is satisfactory and why others are not, that kind of reason or investigative thing, and solution for it. Discuss and evaluate conflicting explanations. We have talked elaborately on conflicting, confounding thing. We have talked about unexpected findings. Identify potential limitations. Everything cannot be covered. Everything was not covered. You committed so much of samples, only so many samples you could do. Please submit whatever that it is there. Limitations have to got to here. The reflection of your sincerity is being tested. So do that. No cooking up, no, kind of what is called guessing work. Whatever that you have done, be very honest and sincere. Summarize the with precision, briefly and to the point. Of course, we have a summary chapter, summary and conclusion chapter, but in discussion also there must be a summary of the arguments, narration that you have done, like a summary paragraph. Provide recommendations. Student is not expected to recommend, but logically sometimes recommendations are allowed, but it should not be over projected. We find in 8th semester or final year projects, students recommending, and that is not a good trend. Recommendations are not possible because the research that they have done is just last 6 months or 3 months or in a year, which of course for any purpose is shallow, is untested and unconfirmed. But however, recommendations have got to be very, very limited, but recommendations should figure, right? It should be limited and it should figure, not over projecting it. Many people feel if they give more recommendations, it's a better research. No, it is not that. It, in fact, if you give more recommendations, you become a consultant later after getting the, when you put all your research experience into practice and consult, recommendations is possible. Now we are not got to that stage. It is better we refrain recommending more, but recommending whatever that is we have got, whatever that is feeling fit, whatever others agree, whatever others feel and appreciate. So that kind of recommendation refinement is important. So just do's and don'ts. Do provide context and explain why people should care of the result. Don't simply rehash your results, simply telling I got this p is equal to less than 0.05, 0.001 or 1. No, it is not that. You will tell why. You have to attribute some kind of argument, some kind of reasoning. Do emphasize the positive, never exaggerate. Do look forward to the future, don't end with it. Why should not exaggerate? Because any amount of confirmation is subjective. You have confirmed it. If it is confirmed by others, appreciated by others, then there is a consolidation. So never exaggerate at your stage that this is, I am the only fellow who did the experiment. This is the only study, this kind of language you should refrain talking. This nobody has investigated. Never ever do this kind of what is called self glorification. There is no place of self glorification in research. Others should glorify you, not yourself. So don't exaggerate. Do look forward to the future. Have futuristic attitude, because research, as I told you in the beginning itself, is a lifelong learning experience. You will be going on practicing. You can never become perfect. Please be humble and also have that humility as a ingrained character. It is important for you. Finally, coming to summary, conclusions and recommendations, a small chapter. It is reiterating whatever we have done. It should not be very long. It should not be very short even. It could be some 2 to 3 pages, maximum up to 4 pages you can have, or even a page of conclusion and recommendation is fair enough, but it should not be very, very kind of paragraph like, it should be, because solid amount of work with 3 to 5 objectives you have done from last 4 to 5 years. So you will get solid amount of results. Many things have got to be depicted. If many things have to be told, paraphrase it. If you have got very less and crisp summary, you can always present it even in 1 page. Summary should be as brief. Brevity is the rule here. Each factor, each finding, you can always highlight it. If it is very many findings, prioritize them and tell top 5 or top 3 the rule, because always it is there in the embedded in the discussion other chapters, so they need not. But because we need to end in a particular fashion as a methodology, the summary chapter becomes important, because many people who read your thesis do not have so much of time as you have time to spend years and years to do research, and also months and months to write the research. Many people will not have that much of amount of time, so they can read through this summary conclusion to get a complete holistic picture, a comprehensive picture, an overview of your work. So that should suffice. That is the intention why we write summary conclusion. Conclusion is an interpretation of facts you gathered and discussed. It has got to be original, and it is not the repetition of fact what others have done. It is not an action that one must take, but it is logical end of your particular own exercise as research. Summary section may be the conclusion. Summarize the findings, conclusion. In conclusion, take away whatever the message that you are giving, in very, very brief statement. Future work you need to mention, and also limitation you need to mention. These are the ingredients in summary. Yeah, I have already talked about this. Conclusion also, I have talked about this. So these are the 4 things that you should never forget to mention in conclusion: advantages, novelty, limitations, suggestions or recommendations if you have. Okay, these are the things you have for a good conclusion. Recommendations, as I told you, be careful about recommending. We are not consultants, we are researchers. We have just learned and we have just convincing. What we have found is is a sincere attempt. That is what is to be reflected. Finally, the acknowledgement, important. There are two kinds of acknowledgement. One acknowledgement comes when you write an article, one acknowledgement comes when you write a thesis. So in a thesis, you will place it just after the table of contents. But in an article, you put it at the end after the summary and conclusion of the article. Acknowledgement, the reason is kind of what is called giving gratitude, returning gratitude, thanking people who have helped you, people who have engaged with your work. They could be sometimes people who have involved or engaged with work gets even co-author status. Funding, never forget this. Funding is extremely important because that is what has driven you to do the work. So many facilities the institute would have provided. Thank them or thank the institute. It should not be too big. In acknowledgement in the beginning, it could be around 1 to 2 pages or 1.5 page at an optimum. This one, it should not be too big. You can include everything, sometimes even your family, in the acknowledgement sheet in the thesis. But at the end of the article, it's very, very important that the funding agency involved and the persons who really contributed directly to the work and who cannot be authors can be acknowledged. This is the rule in acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is returning of gratitude. The tone, the language that you use in acknowledgement should be exuberance of your sincerity. You mean it, you feel it, and that emotive thing has to come out in acknowledgements. I think we have covered everything. We have started off with research meaning. We have had a discussion on the rules and regulations of a problem statement, then how to do reviewing of literature, what are variables, and how to construct formulate hypothesis, and how to narrate, do experiments in material methods chapter, and then how to stitch results, interpret them in discussion. And we also had some brief account on summary, conclusion, and finally the acknowledgement. I think I will stop at this today. There is some more thing that is left out. Possibly in next 2 more sessions, I would be talking to you because they are very relevant and they will be logical, kind of appendices for whatever that we have talked in research methodology. The first lecture next will be on what is called misconduct in research or professional ethics in research or research ethics. That needs a complete 1 hour deliberation. We will see what is that, because that is guiding principle to, either you are a student, now you are a person and you have a personality, and this personality have got to be reflected. And what is that research person's behavior, character, and also as a persona we need to discuss. So research ethics becomes important. There are certain rules, ground rules embedded in professional ethics. So professional ethics and becomes the important chapter, and we will have that discussion for the next session for 1 hour, and followed by we will have a separate session on 2 important aspects. One, what are those ingredients and rules, regulations to write a good article for publication? What are the considerations? And then finally, how to write a project proposals to get funds, because that you have become now expert researcher, but now you have to continue the work and also give work to so many of your students. So project proposals get you funds. These 2 things we will discuss in the subsequent lecture. Now, if you have any question in whatever that we have discussed today, from maybe material, methods till conclusion, you can always ask. It's open for discussion.
Yeah, anybody wants to
Hello,
ask sir any
Anupama?
question? Yes, sir, I'm there. The scholars, would you like to have any question? or any faculty members, respected faculty members? Would you like to ask any questions? Sir is asking that.
Generally, Anupama, if they do not have question, I generally ask questions, but I did not indicate in the beginning, so I cannot have that prerogative. But it is always good that we discuss and then get clarification. May not be in a very exhaustive manner.
Right, sir.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I have a question, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes.
you can ask sir
Yes.
directly. Yes, he is able to hear.
Sir, when you spoke about the future work that we will be talking about in our thesis,
Yes.
you said us it should be simple and it should be what we have found out that what can be the next step that can be taken in this perspective.
Yes.
But
Shweta.
if we have got suggestions from our external DC members, can we include those points also in our future scope
No,
of the study?
basically, as a researcher, what you got has got to be, you see, what
Uh,
happens sometimes is you would have put your objectives in the beginning. Is it not, Shweta? You would have enlisted objectives. Is it not? Hello? Hello? Am I audible? Hello?
no, sir, I'm not able to. Hello?
Are you able to
Hello?
listen?
Yes, sir. Now good, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I'm
Okay,
able
you
to.
would have listed the objectives. Is it not in the beginning?
Yes, sir.
After the reviewing of literature, you would have listed. And if you complete the objectives, tell you have completed the objective. Don't give what is called unnecessary importance
Okay.
or future work. Future work has to be logically springing up,
Okay.
right? Your future, you will actually you will work as if there is no future, but in research it seldom happens. Many
Yeah.
times, objectives will be completely, in the strictest sense, completely finished. So whatever that is remnant, whatever that is remaining, and you could not do in the present time that was allotted to you, you can always
Yeah.
continue, and you can tell that is your future work, you can do it, but
Yes,
not
sir.
as a scope, not as a
Okay.
scope. We are not in that
Okay.
stage. Recommendations is something which a expert gives, but because we are learners, because we are
Yes,
students,
sir.
it is good that we should stop at sufficing and defending the work completed, fulfilling the
Okay.
objectives. And if there is something left out in the objective, that as a future scope, you can always
Okay.
talk. Not as general recommendations, what a
Okay.
consultant gives.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Anupama?
Yes, sir.
Shall we close? I think
Yeah.
students are
If there is
tired.
no other
Again,
question,
it
I
was a
think
long
we can.
session.
Yes, sir. We can close. If there is any question, anyone else, scholars,
They
we
can
will
always
close
note
this
it
session.
down and ask in the future session as well.
Yes. All
I
right.
think there
Yes,
is
sir. I
no
think,
more
Yes, Sunil.
questions, I think,
Sunil.
sir. It's,
sir, will you, Dr. Sunil More, sir,
yeah, sir.
are you saying
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
sir?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Sir, I think your presentation and your points are very clear.
Yes, sir.
I think there is not much questions in that.
All right.
Probably the people who have joined here are about to complete, and for them it will really
Yes.
helpful for them to put all that in
Yes.
their thesis. So thank you
Yes.
very much, sir, for
Thank
enlightening
you.
all of us and making us know all the important points while writing especially the
Yeah.
materialization methods. A few things were really, really very
Yes.
good, which we used to neglect many
Yeah,
times. And I think it will help all the scholars
yes.
of our biological
Yes.
science
Yes.
as well as chemistry, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
time
you.
and
Thank
patience, sir.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I think thank you all the participants. Next time, Dr. Anupama.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Anupama.
Yes, sir.
Next time, these sessions, either you hold it on Saturdays,
Okay.
Saturday.
Hmm.
Why? Because many scholars are working scholars. So
Okay.
that's the reason the participants are a bit reduced today. That's the reason.
Oh, okay, sir. I'll tell Dr. Banga sir also.
And some of the students. Yes.
Dr. Additionally, this is Ashok, madam. If you get a link one day before,
Ashok.
probably it will be good for us to circulate with the students.
Yes. Correct, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
actually,
today morning we got, even if we circulate, they may not see mail routinely, frequently, so they may not see even many of our research students.
Correct.
yes, sir. I have informed Dr. Banga sir. Actually, we were waiting for the DSU link. There's a DSU link that we need to get from the other department. So that was late a little. We will take care of that, sir. I have already we have spoken to Banga sir, and we are taking care of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Ashok.
Dr. Sunil sir, you are saying something.
Yes.
Professor Krishna Murthy sir, you are saying something?